My first employee, who I built the company with, he left and took the majority of my clients. So at that point, I was sat there and I remember thinking, what do I do now? Do I either shut up shop? Do I go and do something else? And I really decided that video and training was the two things that I really loved. It's a really weird idea of safety because it's safety based on someone else's decision. So you're never really safe until you can take control yourself. You can do anything. It's a belief that's a solid, grounded belief that if you decide you're going to do something, you can go and do it, and there's nothing that really stops you. And I've not experienced that anywhere else. It's only in the creator world, and I think it's because creators are paid to create video content, and I don't think they can quite believe that that's the case. I've just changed the way I do it because I don't have a huge audience to say, what if I focused on a small number of people who gave me a large amount of money, the high ticket offer? I can then move that into a group-based session and then eventually into the membership and increase the cost of the membership. You only need to be around corporate people to understand that their budgets are huge. A lot of them, sometimes they're not, but a lot of them they are. And for them to spend £10,000 or, $20,000 or whatever it might be on some of your time for a certain period of time feels to you maybe like a lot of money, but in the end, actually for them, it's just part of a small budget, and all they want is for them. I remember someone saying to me, Matt, I just need you to do a good job so I don't get fired. And that was it. And so they were happy to pay me whatever I needed to do that job. They just wanted to be really sure that we were going to deliver what they said so they didn't get fired.
This is Matt Hughes. He makes a 5-figure income as a small and strategic YouTuber. Matt's journey began when he realized that success on YouTube isn't solely about numbers. After navigating the ups and downs of his video production business, he fully embraced the creator lifestyle, launching TubeFest to connect and empower fellow creators. Matt emphasizes the value of in-person events and networking, showing that anyone can monetize their passion on YouTube no matter where you start. In this episode, we dive into the empowering journey of redefining success beyond subscriber count, how an unexpected career shift led him to fully committing to YouTube, essential strategies for turning your passion into a profitable income stream, and the impact of in-person events on community building and networking. Let this conversation inspire you to take action and demonstrate that a successful YouTube journey can begin at any stage, paving the way to financial freedom. The Funded YouTuber is brought to you by GigaStar. I am so excited for this conversation, Matt, because I feel like your journey is one that so many people can relate to and are going through and all of the things. So are you ready to talk about it?
I'm glad you're excited because I feel like my journey is a mess. So I'm happy. Just let's go. Let's do it.
Is it wrong that I'm like, the messier, the better, but also there's so much to learn from it. So Matt, what do you create on the internet?
Well, right now, my focus is all about the journey of becoming a full-time creator. That's what I'm creating at the moment. I used to be like, my brand was king of video, and I was like trying to be like everybody else and show people how to create video. But I really wanted to fail in public, or build in public is probably a better way to describe it. But I've said to everybody, look, this new channel is about growing together and showing you the right way to do it so you can make money from the start on YouTube.
I feel like it's very unusual to start, like right now I'm just learning to be a full-time YouTuber, but you've been doing this for some time. So what drove you to YouTube?
Consequence, I think, is what happened with YouTube. I had a business for 7 years where we traveled the world making video for largely tech companies, which was amazing. I went to the US loads. I've been to Vegas 5 times, all for work, so paid to be in Vegas, which was amazing. In 2018, my first employee, who I built the company with, he left and took the majority of my clients. So at that point, I was sat there and I remember thinking, what do I do now? Do I either shut up shop? Do I go and do something else? And I really decided that video and training was the two things that I really loved. And if I could create a business where I could train people, teach people, and make video, I would be really happy. So I created the King of Video brand because the domain name was available, and I went to VidSummit. Actually, VidSummit was like, I remember going there, I had 117 subscribers, and people were asking me like, how many subscribers have you got? And I was like, 117. They said 117,000. And I was like, no, 117. But I thought if I'm going to do this YouTube thing, I should go to the place where I can learn from the best people. And at the time, and I still probably agree that VidSummit is the one. So yeah, I just got all involved and threw myself in the deep end. And that's how I got started.
I love that VidSummit is such an important part of your journey. I find that events are really important for grounding and inspiring creators to go forward. Like every chance I can, I'm always telling people, like, go to events. Like networking is amazing, but the learning is so good. And I think the unique thing about VidSummit is that it's a conference for YouTubers by YouTubers, and you will see people who have like 1 million subscribers in the audience, like taking notes and learning while after they just got off of the stage where they were teaching other people how to do stuff. Because I think what's so cool about being a YouTuber is there's so many ways to grow and so many things to do and try, and it's always changing. And we're all like, it's kind of like I always say, like when you're in an airplane, like there's all these different ticket prices and all of these different seats that you can get. But at the end of the day, everyone is in the same tin can in the sky, and we're all at the fate of the guy driving the plane. So it's very similar in that nature.
I remember that first event. I sat next to somebody. I can't remember her name now. She was a food creator, and she had this like 1 million followers on Facebook making food content. And I sat next to her, and I just remember thinking, I'm sure I've just seen you on stage like half an hour ago. And now I sat next to her, and that is exactly what you're saying. She was sitting there writing notes, and I was thinking, but you've already made it. Like in my mind, like stupidly, I thought that, because of course, when you're on the outside, you think that that's what made it is, until you speak to people, and then what their definition of what made it is very different. So I just thought, oh my God, you've got there, you've been on stage at this event, and you're sitting here making notes. I couldn't understand why at the time.
It's so interesting. Let's dive into that for a little bit, because I think that what you said is very interesting. That like you've made it. Like why do you need to keep learning and growing? And I think that the cool thing about YouTube is that we're always learning, we're always growing. There's always some new way to be successful and do things, and it doesn't matter what your follower count is or your view count is. Like there is a path to a full-time income within that. So what for you has been your journey to full-time income with YouTube as a small creator, and now this creator who's on this journey of becoming a full-time creator, which is so funny to me because I already see you as a full-time creator. So it's funny that you call yourself that.
The strange thing is, the truth is, that my creator journey has always been a side hustle until very recently. And I never, it wasn't a decision I made recently to make that happen. It kind of happened. But even when I had the video company, I was still an IT contractor. So I made 6 figures in the IT world. I was a public speaker in that world. I got very high in the public speaking space, and I didn't really ever want to let it go. And so when I got into video, I really enjoyed video, and it's a very different place, but I always felt like a noob, a new, I was never trained. Nobody told me how to create video. We just sort of figured it out as we went along the way. And then quite recently, that IT contract career ended without my knowledge, without my decision. I didn't make a conscious decision. So it kind of just said, well, go and be full-time doing this thing now. And actually the day it happened was the day after my conference. I had the job, I had the conference. The pinnacle of my career was the conference, and then the universe decided that I should go full-time the day after that. So yeah, it was really, really by accident. But up until that point, I would definitely not have said I was full-time in this.
Why were you not ever able to let go of that contract gig? Like, what was it that kept holding you? What was the chokehold that it had on you that made you not want to let it go?
I think it's safety. I think that's what why most people keep their permanent job, and it's a really weird idea of safety, because it's safety based on someone else's decision. And so you're never really safe until you can take control yourself. So it was safety in a contract position that was a certain amount of time, sometimes between 6 months and 2 years, it might be in each contract. I was doing that for 13 years. So every 6 to 12, maybe a little bit longer, months, I had to get a new job. But that was I was so used to that it didn't feel unsafe. I just always fell into another one and fell into another one, always really well paid. And I just don't know. you know, when you get like, it was like £2,500 a month, which is like $3,000 a month, something like a week. Sorry, when you're getting that kind of money in a job that doesn't take a lot of effort, it feels like a really good, safe position. And then to go and do it through content or through other means, memberships, affiliates, all that kind of stuff, all these different revenue streams, which is the logical move. It just doesn't feel as safe. I don't know why, Desiree. Why does it not feel as safe?
That's a very good question. And I think that it doesn't feel safe because it's really easy to have someone else to blame. When you have a job, it's everything is on somebody else's shoulders. Someone else is taking on all of the burden, all the responsibility of making sure that everyone gets paid. Because no matter what, you're going to get paid. Like, because that's the job of the employee. Every 2 weeks, I know what my money is. People build their entire lives off it. And like, when you look at like our world exists for people to have jobs, but jobs can't exist without someone at the top being responsible in some way, shape, or form. And so it can be very, very scary to go from a world you've always known in not just a world you've known, like, of having a job, but also a system that is designed
Yeah,
specifically for people to
like
have
you're
jobs.
conditioned for it, right? And I
You
get
are.
that. I feel like it's that full personal responsibility, and maybe because my kids are a little bit older now, so they're less reliant on me. Although I'd still say they're fully financially reliant on me. I've always had the support of my wife. She's always been like, you know, you do what you think is best. I'm here. I'll support you, and even when times have been very difficult. But yeah, I think that's probably the scariest thing about it all is that, yeah, I'm fully responsible now. And maybe it's because at 40 years old, I still don't feel like a responsible adult. That's the problem.
I could not agree with you more. I look at myself sometimes in the mirror and I'm like, someone gave me children. I have a mortgage.
Yeah.
I have
Why do
life
people pay
insurance
me
and a
to do this?
will. What is all this adulting I'm doing right now? It just feels so weird. But my mom was just visiting with me last week, and she's 59, about to turn 60 next year. And I was asking her, I was like, do you ever just feel like you're almost 16? She's like, no, never. And I feel like my body is betraying me because my mind is like, what are you doing? Like, we're like 25. Like, why are you acting like this? You catch yourself in the mirror and you're like, whoa, who's that old person? Like, oh, that's me. So I can totally get that. But I think for me, because I was forced from the beginning to be an entrepreneur for so long. Like the idea of having a job and relying on somebody else's time and just like having someone like rent/own my life and time in exchange for money just seems so weird at this point, and I'm sure that you'll you'll get there too.
The thing is, I had five staff in an office, and we had like we got some great deals. One of the months when I bought my house, I made 50 grand that month. I had no money for my deposit for my house. We needed £27,000, so most money I've ever made in a month. I've done the things that people say are the things that you should do in order to make that jump and to believe in yourself and be responsible. But it just I don't know. I just never know why I never really like. In hindsight, I wonder when I had the office and I had the 4 or 5 guys in the office. I always admired their position being full time in my business because I was always doing the contracting thing at the same time. But in hindsight, I think I wish I would have jumped sooner. But you know, what the hindsight don't help, does it? It's just that I'm just
No.
really fortunate and glad to be in the position where I am now.
It's important to do, and I think it's important to be in. Okay, so you're the king of video. Why did you decide to start a conference? Because I think that is one of the most interesting things about your journey, because it's such a big, hard thing. So I'd love to know like where this whole journey started, where the idea came from, and how it is laying a groundwork for your future income.
Sure. So the idea is really easy. I went to Vid Summit, then I went to Social Media Marketing World, and I sat with Social Media Marketing World in San Diego is where I registered the domain, TubeFest. And it was because I was at Social Media Marketing World, and it takes 11 hours to get there on a flight. It costs us about £5,000 plus a week out of the office. And I sat there and thought, why is there nothing like this in the UK? Why is there nothing like this in Europe? I did a little bit of Googling. I couldn't find anything of that size. We had VidCon in London for a little while. I think there was a Barcelona version as well, maybe a Portugal one. And we've got things like Web Summit, which is a huge conference, but nothing really creator based. So I just sat there and thought, well, why can't I create that? I mean, I'd had a couple of margaritas, Desiree, I will be honest. So maybe I had a bit of Dutch courage, but I just thought, why not? Why can't I do that? And so I registered the domain. That was my intentional action. And then I had like the best summer of my life. I went to loads of music festivals, loads of gigs. I was just really excited about it. And I thought, you know what, I'll do it in 2025. Wait a year or so, do all the planning. And then just before Vid Summit, I was like, do you know what am I waiting for? Why should I wait? Why don't I do it next year and get it set up and start selling tickets now and just put the stuff into action? So just before not the Vid Summit, just gone the one before, I intentionally decided that I was going to go to Vid Summit to find speakers and sponsors. That was my objective. And of course, at the time, I found Austin and Nick. I found VidPros, Mike from VidPros, and we all got drunk together. And they all said, if you put on a conference, we're coming. And so I said, okay. And we did it.
So that's where you and I met in real life for the first time too. I did not get invited to drink because I had to leave, but I hear you. It's very funny to me. Like I said, the best conversations, the best situations, the best stuff happens at those networking events, those after hours parties, the just like connecting and being together part. And I love that you did it. So my part in the Tube Fest world is he said he was going to do it. And I was like, how do I help you? Like, how do I help you make this dream a reality? Because I think the mission is super cool. I'm always about like, how do we get ahead on things? I know Nick and I had talked about it too. And he was in the same thing. He's like, there's nothing like this in the UK. We got to help launch it and get it out there and make the things happen. And there's been some things that have still popped up even since you've launched Tube Fest, but nothing I think with the intentionality of what you're doing for your conference. And I think what's really cool about what you're doing with your conference, and I'd love to know more about this decision, is your plan is to do it twice a year, once in Europe and then once in the UK. Why are you doing that?
You said about it's important to go to events. The other thing I want to say is that when I sat with Nick and Austin, so Nick Nimim and Austin Armstrong, the other thing is that when you go to creator-based events, there's a belief that you can do anything, right? And it's not just a belief like a belief in some other thing that you can't see or whatever. Like it's a belief that's a solid, grounded belief that if you decide you're going to do something, you can go and do it, and there's nothing that really stops you. And I've not experienced that anywhere else. It's only in the creator world, and I think it's because creators are paid to create video content, and I don't think they can quite believe that that's the case, because it's just wild that they go and stand in front of a camera and they get paid to do it. I know there's Hollywood and all the other things, but I still think there's just something special about the creator space.
So why did you make the decision to make the event in two spaces? Why Europe and then the UK?
So the thing is, in my IT world, I spoke at a lot of US conferences. Microsoft do these conferences every year, the Worldwide Partner Conference. It's called something else now. And they did it in the US, and it was a traveling US conference. I really liked it because we get to go to different US states and visit different places. And then equally, there was a European version called the European SharePoint Conference, and that traveled Europe and went to different places. Unfortunately, the Microsoft one ended up in Vegas, and it stayed there for years. So it got a bit boring going to Vegas all the time. Apologies to Vegas. But the European one definitely went all around the different cities. And so I really wanted to make a decision that if we were going to do the UK one, we should do a UK one every year as like a base for always knowing that we're in the UK, where I'm from. And then we should have a European part that goes to different cities. And the decision was to make like at least half of the main stage speakers be local talent from those areas. And then we get to experience the culture of different European countries. Like every European country is wildly different to the UK and to the US and that kind of thing. So it's so important for people to be able to travel and experience those things. It's like food for the soul, experiencing different European cultures. So that's why I decided to do the two. I don't know if I fully considered what was involved in that decision, but that's That's why I did it.
I feel like the best decisions are made without like knowing how the rest of it, how it's going to happen. It's just the intentionality putting in the world and then saying it's going to happen and then figuring it out along the way. And when you think about the creator economy as a whole, and you think about like YouTubers, like that's like so much of what we know. Like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna take this piece over here, and this piece over here, and this piece over here, and we're just now getting to like some systemization of it. But then they just go and change all the time. So it's really is a lot of like f around and find out for sure.
Yeah, and also like, what's the downside in saying yes to things and doing different things? The downside is I lose some money. I think that's the risk behind it. But outside of that, there's so many upsides. There's my brand positioning as a conference organizer. I'm very transparent. Like, I don't ignore the fact that what that does for me as a personal brand, but also like when I was in the Microsoft space, I always built communities. I've still got a community of 22,000 people in the Microsoft space on Facebook. I don't do anything with that community anymore because I'm not in there, but I own it. It's still there. It still exists, and it was created by me and only me as well. Like there was people there that joined and helped build it. Of course, you can't do everything on your own, but it was just a decision I made, and it was just through having no real fear around doing something new and just trying it and failing if that happens, because like I say, there's no real downsides, and I think having spoke to a handful of people and them all saying, yes, oh Matt, you should do that, and I'm not quiet about the fact that they said you should do that. Like, you go and take all the risk. But I also think it's a superpower about having a neurodivergent brain where you don't have to think of all of the downsides, and you can just go, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then everyone else has got to catch up with me when I'm running towards that goal.
So on our podcast, we talk about the pie chart of your different income streams. Your income streams are broken down into three different distinct ones. And I want to talk about them each individually because I think how you're doing them is really unique and I think and slightly unconventional. So the first one that you have on here is that you get 5% of your income from membership. Talk about what your membership is and what you're doing with it and how it works in your income streams.
Yeah. So, and we have to talk about the transition because the pie chart you've got now is about my losing my job income streams, right? So the 5% was membership. So I've always had memberships and communities, and they've always been low cost communities. Like, I just want to foster community. I never really saw it as like an income generating activity. It was just, how can I create a community of people and be around a bunch of cool people? A great example of that is I have a mastermind called Secret Success Club, and masterminds are usually like £500 plus to join per month. Sometimes they're like £10,000 a month. I've seen huge ones in the US. Mine was £10 per month, and I did it because everyone said that you couldn't run a low cost mastermind and for people to actually show up in it. So I had 100 people join, which is £1,000 a month. It's not a massive amount of money. I just wanted to get all those people to do something positive. We're still running that now with 10 months in. There's about 50 people left, but some people didn't take action. But it wasn't there to be money making. It was about just bringing people together and having some kind of micro commitment to join and help each other out. There was an application process and stuff as well.
The membership, how is this going to be something that you continue to build out for your income streams, and how are you using your YouTube channel to support it?
Now I have three main products. I have a product called YouTube Launchpad, which is $97. I have a membership, which is £497 per year. So the YouTube Launchpad is a one-off price. $497 for the membership per year. And then I have a one-to-one product that's $4,500, so about $5,000. And that's it. I think that's it. I think that's all I have going forward, because then I can see people choosing one of the three. There's low, medium, and high ticket offer, which I think is probably, hopefully when you've had these conversations, that's what everyone has, because it's the most logical way for people to choose one or the other. But that means it will change the pie chart as we go forward. The consulting side that used to be my IT income will now become my high ticket income from the one-to-one stuff that I do.
You talk a lot about the services that you provide. So like I said, when you look through your pie chart, you have your Membership, it makes up 5%. You have digital courses and digital products, it makes up 5%, and the 90% does come from consulting and speaking. What is the role YouTube plays in these income streams, and how are you funneling to them?
With the full-time creator, Matt Fulltime, it's at Matt Fulltime on all the socials. With that one, what we're doing is we are strategically getting people to fill in our scorecard. Score app is what we use for our scorecard. And they fill in the scorecard, they get a score for their YouTube score, and then at the end of that, it asks them to book a call. And then from the call, we then decide, and then we kind of push them to one of the free products. Really, really simple, straightforward strategy.
What has the thought process you've had and the thought process that the outside world has had around you teaching people about YouTube without being a quote unquote big YouTuber yourself?
So I talk about this when I do my public speaking, actually. I call it the elephant in the room, because obviously one of the first things people do when they go and look at someone who calls themselves a YouTube mentor is they go and check out my YouTube channel, and they're like, well, you've only got 3,200 subscribers. What's the deal there? And the way I deal with it is I teach people how to use YouTube to get money in the bank. So I show them you don't need a big audience. You don't need millions of subscribers, loads of views in order to get cash in the bank. What you need is the right viewer, and you need a next logical step for them to give you money. And if you can do that, then you can do that with one of my clients had 120 subscribers when she worked with me, and she got a £6,000 coaching client. She had less than 2,000 views at that point as well. And that's the difference between being somebody that wants to go viral, somebody that really cares about subscribers and views, versus someone that cares about cash in the bank.
I think it's also the big difference between the intentionality of the content. I think that in the creator economy, when we're talking with YouTubers and all this stuff, it is so easy to tie worth to subscriber count. But the people that are big on YouTube, they don't make sense some of the time. Like when you think about Mr. Beast or Logan Paul or any of them, they don't make sense. Like, how do they make this much money and do all these things and sell all this stuff when they're just like doing like nonsensical giving away money to homeless people or punching people in the face or doing trips to Tokyo and running around with like fans behind them? Like, it's not sustainable, which is a big thing I've been really digging into as a business owner and as a creator lately, like what's sustainable and what is unsustainable. When you're talking about sustainability comes from like, what can I repeatedly do that continues to give me growth and income? And that's what you're going to dig into, I think, as a YouTuber, especially as we move forward, like what our next phase is and like where the creator economy is going. What are your thoughts on intentionality and the idea of being sustainable and unsustainable on YouTube?
You said, what can I do that's repeatable, that's sustainable? So, and I tried all the other things. So as I was transitioning from being a consultant, a contractor, to being a full-time creator, and I was trying to make that move, I tried all of the low ticket things. So I was like, well, get a bunch of people to give you a small amount of money, and over time it adds up to a bigger, more recurring revenue based model. And I tried that, and that's great if you have a big audience already. So I can see how the big creators, when they launch a membership, if they get 1,000 people in a membership, that makes a really good amount of revenue. But you need a huge audience in order for that to work. So I've just changed the way I do it, because I don't have a huge audience, to say, what if I focused on a small number of people who gave me a large amount of money, the high ticket offer? And so I'll do that now whilst I've got time to give them one-to-one service. So the one-to-one, the high ticket is one-to-one. I know that's not scalable long term, but as my audience grows, I can then move that into a group-based session and then eventually into the membership and increase the cost of the membership. So it's just about understanding, like, what business model do you need in the early days to sustain you creating a larger audience, where you can then have a business model where you don't need to spend all the time with somebody. And everybody told me that's what I should have done at the start, and I just ignored them.
I want to make you feel a bit better because this is my path too. So when I started online social media back in 2015, there was this business called Mojo Social, and they launched this business called $99 Social, and it was daily posting to Facebook and Twitter for $99 a month. And I was like, I could never compete with that. Like, I can't come up with something that's $100 a month. Like, my overhead is more than that, like, in this whole thing. And so it bugged me, it grind my gears so much. And I'm sure they had like upsell models and all these other things they got to do to like make it more financially lucrative. But when I launched All in One, it was kind of like to compete with that in an affordable way. And so I was charging people $125 a month. And we did like a small Facebook ad budget. We did custom graphics and we post every day for them on their Facebook and Twitter. And everyone was like, loved it at first because it was like, yeah, it's cheap and easy and it checks the box of our marketing stuff. But as I continue to go down, I would talk to people and coaches and stuff. They'd be like, Desiree, you are not charging enough. I'm like, but people won't pay me more. I don't know what to tell you. They're like, will they not pay you more? Or are you just attracting people that don't want to pay? And it's like that, like real conversation, like just now, like I'm 15 years into this. Like again, from MySpace to now, right? I I'm just now getting into these like, okay, this is my hourly, and this is like, we're not doing work that's less than 3 to 5K per month retainers for 6 month contracts. Like, I can't justify that. But my plan and like the projections for scale are like, that doesn't mean I'm only going to have 5 clients. It means like, no, we're going to have like 50 clients. We're just going to have to keep onboarding the bigger team to sustain these 3 to 5 to $10,000 a month clients, because that I can control, that I can give value to. That is what makes sense for what businesses need. Sometimes you need a low cost offer and sometimes you don't. And it just depends on what you have to offer and what you're doing. And I think the bigger you are, generally the lower your ticket costs are on like what you can get people to do and make money off of.
It's economies of scale, right? And there's a money mindset issue that comes in with that. Like you don't know what you're worth, and I guess that's what we've all been through at the start. But also like being able to confidently ask for 3 to 5K in from what you were just saying then, it's a whole different ball game, and it really takes like learning in your business how to do it. Like I have so much admiration. I met a guy recently who was 26 and he's working with huge brands, like really big brands, and will be making a lot of money doing that. And I'm like, how has he got the balls, for want of a better phrase, to ask for those kind of figures at that low, at that age? Because I didn't have that at that age. But then he grew up with KSI and some of the other content creators that were suddenly making it like a really easy and obvious thing to do. And I certainly didn't have any kind of role model that would show me that actually you could do this at that age as quickly. So maybe it's just a generational thing as well.
There's always a thing. And I think that the money mindset is hard. And I think when you have a job and that's the world that we've operated for so long, it can be very easy to get trapped into like, well, these people have conditioned me that this is what my value is. And so it's hard to think to ask for more. But, where I know I operate now, I have a certain dollar amount that I can't function below now because our living expenses have increased as we've made strategic decisions. And then we also have our goals, our long-term financial goals and our short-term financial goals. And like, those are things that I continue to prioritize and drive like why and how I do stuff. And so I think also too, when we're in this like consulting and like we're in the consulting and inspiration space. And I think that like in order for us to consult effectively and inspire importantly and impactfully, it's sharing our failures and building people up based on our successes and knowing and like reminding people like, you are a badass person doing badass things. Like, go crush that. And if you need a pep talk, like, I'm here to help you get through that. And I always try to be that for everybody as best as I can, because people need to get paid what they're worth.
Yeah, I totally get it. And you only need to be around corporate people to understand that their budgets are huge. A lot of them, sometimes they're not, but a lot of them they are. And for them to spend £10,000 or, $20,000 or whatever it might be on some of your time for a certain period of time feels to you maybe like a lot of money. But in the end, actually for them, it's just part of a small budget. And all they want is for them. I remember someone saying to me, Matt, I just need you to do a good job so I don't get fired. And that was it. And so they were happy to pay me whatever I needed to do that job. They just wanted to be really sure that we were going to deliver what they said, so they didn't get fired. That's all they cared about in their job.
On our subject of like funded YouTubers and full-time incomes and being in any subscriber count place in life and making and knowing how to charge enough, what do you think YouTubers need to know so they can make what they need and want and be scalable and grow?
I think you need to be very clear what you need to keep the lights on. So what's your monthly amount to pay your rent, to pay your utility bills, to put food on your table, all that kind of stuff. Be very clear on that. I think you need to know what your daily rate is, and I think you need to know what your hourly rate is. And I think you can do it in a couple of ways. And one of my coaches got me to do this. So they said, "What's your keep your lights on money?" And it was something like £2,500 at the time. Then they said, "Okay, what's your like living a good life money? You can save some money for a holiday or buy a new car, whatever." And it was like £4,000. And then it was like, "What's your thrive amount?" And it was like £6,000-7,000. You save some money, you can start saving for a mortgage or to down payment on a house or whatever. I think when you look at it in those ways, you can then just do a little bit of good math and say, okay, if I was to thrive and it might be £10,000 a month, what does that actually look like with the amount of time that I want to work? And that doesn't mean, I don't know if it's the same for you in the US, but in the UK, generally speaking, for a full-time job, it's somewhere between 37.5 and 40 hours a week for X amount of time in the year. So it doesn't mean I'm going to create a working job for myself in my business. It means if I only want to work 10 hours a week, then what's the thrive money divided by the 10 hours? That's my hourly rate. And then therefore you can work out your day rate and stuff as well. I think if you start there, it's a good place to start. And then eventually you figure out, okay, once I've got to that point and I'm getting that regularly, how can I then improve on that?
Matt, where can people find you on the internet?
So I am at kingofvideo.co.uk. That's my domain name. And you can also find me at Matt Fulltime on the socials.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time and expertise and being vulnerable enough to share your rough journey. I think it's so invaluable for YouTubers to know that there are so many different paths to being successful and that financial full-time income can look different for everybody and the path is always different. So thank you for sharing that with us. Until next week, we'll get that money. Peace. The Funded YouTuber is brought to you by GigaStar, a parent company of GigaStar Market, an SEC-registered funding portal and member of FINRA. Learn more at gigastar.io. Neither GigaStar nor its affiliated companies provide legal, regulatory, financial, or tax advice. Any opinions expressed herein are those of the authors and are the informational purposes only. The information and opinions expressed herein are subject to change without notice and do not take into account the particular investments, objectives, finance situation, or needs of any specific investors.